My husband Chris, 36, and I, female 33, planned a one-week vacation to an out-of-state ski resort with our two little kids. His cousin Martin, male 38, lost his wife to cancer 6 months ago. She left behind two kids nearly the same age as my kids. My husband is devastated by his best friend's loss. They're so close that he sees him as a friend, understandably so. He tries to help Martin and the kids, but in my opinion, he's been doing a little too much for them lately. He suggested we take Martin's kids with us to the resort to get their minds off the grief a bit. I apologised and said it wouldn't work since we barely have the budget to cover our kids. He insisted and then tried offering compromises, but I still said it wouldn't work. He was obviously angry, but dropped it eventually. 2 days before the trip, I found out that my husband had booked 2 tickets for Martin's kids instead of our own kids. I was the one paying, but he insisted on handling the booking and making reservations. I was stunned. I called him out on it and he apologetically talked about how Martin needs some alone time away from the kids, how the kids need a breather, and how they need this vacation more than our kids do. I flipped out at him, asking if he was seriously okay with prioritizing other kids over his own. He said it wasn't about priorities but doing what's needed to help those kids out. I asked how his own kids would react once they found out, but he said I'm sure they'd understand. I said no and decided to cancel the vacation altogether. He freaked out on me, saying I can't do that and make him look small in front of his cousin and family, since they praised him for this nice gesture. I refused to negotiate it, but he called me selfish and cruel towards grieving kids and said that he'd make sure our own kids know how I'm behaving towards the other kids by robbing them of the fun they so much need and deserve. We haven't been talking, and he's so angry and keeps throwing fit after fit about it, claiming I ruined it for everybody when I cancelled. I feel bad for the kids, I do. But I don't think what he did was right. Am I the idiot for cancelling a vacation because my husband gave our kids tickets to his widowed cousin's kids? Not the idiot. This isn't about him caring for his friend's kids. Instead, he's using them to look like a big man and so charitable. If he was either one of those things, he would have used his own money. This is about his image. What was his plan for the caretaking of your kids during the vacation? Last-minute babysitter paid by you? How exactly would one do that anyway? Mommy is bad because she won't let me leave you at home while we go on a trip with someone else's kids. He's spewing nonsense to get her to fund his own PR campaign. And let's not forget that using OP's money for other purposes is theft. OP, it's time to speak to a divorce attorney if he's going to try and weaponize your own children against you like that. Yeah, she was paying for the whole thing too. Nowhere in the post does it say he was willing to cover the cost of his cousin's kids. He initially wanted to cover the 2 extra kids. With no apparent contribution from him, when she said no, he essentially scammed her. Tell your husband to stay home with his cousin's kids while you take your kids on vacation. Don't cancel your plans because of your husband's need to feel like the hero. He's free to have his cousin's kids for that week at your home so his cousin can have some alone time, and you can go away on your planned vacation with your children. Everybody wins. This is gold. It is actually a compromise. If the husband's true goal is to give everyone a breather, this accomplishes said goal beautifully. Think about everything your husband has done for your family, and if he will ever prioritize your family. If the answer is no, think if this will be good for your kids and their future. Good luck, OP. I, 19 male, had a job taking care of 2 toddlers and a dog and doing light housework 4 days a week for a single mom who got my contact info from a business card I'd posted in my dad's pediatric therapy office. Since the weather started warming, the dog has been shedding like crazy. Like I would vacuum the couch and the next day it would look like I hadn't. I would lightly tug on the dog's hair and would pull out huge tufts. The dog's been scratching all the time, etc. My dad's dog has a double coat like theirs, and one morning when I was leaving for work, I packed his brushing tool in my bag. Then, when the kids were napping, I spent a full hour outside brushing the dog. The dog seemed to enjoy being brushed, and after an hour there was a huge pile of hair that had been brushed out. So before I vacuumed it up, I sent them on what I thought would be a funny text saying, "Brushed a whole new dog out of dog's coat." Looking back, I realised that maybe I should have asked first, but at the time, it seemed like something within the scope of caring for the dog. The mom went ballistic. She called me yelling, saying that by brushing the dog and not letting the hair fall out on its own, I was causing harm to the dog. She said I was an idiot and she couldn't believe she trusted me with her kids and that today was my last day. I was extremely upset because I'd been with the family for 3 months and she'd never yelled at me like that before. I left as soon as she got home because she was still fuming. I immediately lined up a job with another family and I'm supposed to start Monday. The mum who yelled at me called me 2 days later saying she was sorry about the misunderstanding and that firing me was an overreaction. I told her I was no longer available and she started crying about how hard it was to find a new sitter for special needs kids. Her kids are autistic and have therapy at my dad's office. When I stood firm, she started texting my dad and asking him to do something. My dad is annoyed at being dragged into this, and while he respects my decision, he wishes I would keep watching her kids for a short time to keep the peace. I hate that I put anyone in an awkward position, but I also don't want to work for someone like that. Am I the idiot? Edit, my dad is a physical therapist. Not the idiot at all. Your dad is kind of lousy for putting this on you. He's a therapist and he can't see the mother's instability and how it endangers you. I mean, if this is how she reacts to a completely normal thing to do with a dog, God forbid anything ever goes wrong with one of the kids. You're an adult, and accusations against you could lead to legal problems. Stay far away from her. What OP did was not only a normal thing, but a lovely thing to do with a dog. It makes the dog so much more comfortable, and it was a ton of work for OP to do, and it was extremely kind of him. Dogs need to be brushed. No idea why she thought the dog's coat would just fall out naturally. I have an Akita and I can vacuum 3 times a day. If you don't brush the dog, it could get hot spots. This is not a person you want to continue working for. I wouldn't want to go back and have her accuse me of things based on other crazy beliefs. She probably called back to beg for him when she realized how much less fur there was around the house to clean up. It wasn't a misunderstanding, she was abusive. Stand firm and don't go back. And shame on your dad for wanting to send you back for more to keep the peace. Don't reward her terrible behavior. Oh, and you didn't put anyone in an awkward position. Her actions did. I, 33 female, am currently 5 months pregnant. My husband, 35, is on a business trip and should be back next month. This is my first pregnancy and I'm still required to go to the office to work. When I first met my husband, he was very skinny and at a very unhealthy weight and would genuinely avoid many foods. I thought he was just picky, but once I managed to get him to try my cooking and he enjoyed it, I found out this was due to my mother-in-law cooking. My husband said this is because my cooking is very different from his mother's. I was confused at first, but eventually I was invited over and realized what he meant. His mother doesn't add any spices, sauces, or herbs to her cooking. No salt, sugar, or pepper. And the only oil used to cook is vegetable oil. Everything tastes bland because she believes this is healthy, resulting in my husband believing all the food tastes bland and horrible. So of course, when I got together with my husband, he tried new foods and gained a healthy weight. On Wednesday, I made some curry. I normally try to do some meal prep and had a few meals in the freezer and was planning to use those, but I had a very bad curry craving. I've made too much and was planning to have some the next day, since I don't mind eating the same meal a few times a day or week, so I left the spares in the fridge. While I was at work, my in-laws decided to visit and check up on me. They have a spare key just in case something goes wrong. When I came back home, I was starving and wanted to put curry in the microwave, to find it wasn't in the fridge and instead there was a dish made by my mother-in-law. I called her and asked her what happened to my food, and she said she tried it and it tasted spoiled, so she threw it away, and she made me something healthy. I ended up ordering takeaway that day, as in my current state I find her cooking beyond revolting. Today I put the fish she made in the container and gave it to the homeless person. Unfortunately, it seems someone saw me doing that, as within a few hours I got dozens of messages calling me an idiot, including my mother-in-law. My husband is on my side here, but am I the idiot? I can't believe you subject a poor homeless person to that. It sounds disgusting. Okay, jokes aside, not the idiot. Your in-laws threw away your food because it wasn't to their liking and replaced it with their bland garbage. That's incredibly passive-aggressive. I don't blame you. And you need to change the locks. They went into your home without your knowledge and threw away something of yours. This time it was curry. What will it be next time? Formula because you're poisoning her grandbaby? Clothes because it doesn't fit you anymore? Why was she in your fridge snooping? Makes me wonder where else she was snooping and how often this happens. No more keys for them. Yep, if you let yourself in, i.e. break into someone's house when they're not home and throw away their food, you lose your key privileges. Hun, I would get those keys back or change the lock since they showed they couldn't be trusted. And you know she made copies for emergencies. To be honest, OP, it almost seems like the in-laws or something is stalking you. For your sister-in-law to just happen to walk by that very homeless person after work and look long enough to know that it was her mother's seems so far off. Like weird how they assumed it was the same food your mother-in-law left and got so irate so quick that they didn't even have the decency to ask you if you make stuff for homeless people. They went nuclear, trying to involve your husband. Red flags, OP. When they showed up to check on you, your in-laws knew you weren't home either. I mean, if they didn't see your car, why not call or text to see how you're doing and when you were coming home? All I could think of is, someone's watching her. Do they have cameras set up in her home? I can already hear 1,000 abusive excuses for it, but it doesn't matter. She's being watched and not in a healthy checking if you need anything while hubby is out of town way. Scary. So my parents broke up before I was born. They weren't married or anything like that either. I'm not sure of all the details, but what I do know is my dad settled down with my stepmom when I was 3, and my mom was not my stepmom's biggest fan. I know she made life difficult for them. I know she was jealous about my stepmom being introduced into my life while I was so young, but mom had primary custody of me back then, and had until I was 7 when I wanted more time with my dad, which she agreed to. I only know of the bad blood because of my stepmom. She would talk a lot about how possessive my mom was of me, how jealous she was, and how she treated them badly. I was even shown some of the stuff my mom had written to her. It annoyed me to be told because I had no idea my mom felt this way. She was willing to let me spend more time at my dad's, which meant less time with her. She would let me call my dad or other paternal family members while I was with her. I can't say she didn't mistreat my stepmom. There's proof of that. But honestly, that doesn't change how I feel about my mom. I did choose to live with her full-time again when I was 9 because I hated being around my stepmom's constant need to bring up stuff to me. She tried to use me as a go-between and Dad wasn't great about stopping her. I'm a senior in high school right now and my dad and stepmom keep talking about how I'll graduate in May next year and how excited they are. I'm going to graduate older than I should have because I got really sick in 2018-2019 and had to repeat it. It was tough and that made their talk even worse. My stepmom has told me that she doesn't feel comfortable with my mom being there after everything and that she thinks I should be at a point where I can help protect them from someone who has caused so much heartache. I told her my mom would be there because I love my mom and want her to watch me graduate. Stepmom told me I needed to look at the bigger picture. I told her I didn't care what my mom had done to her, that she was still my mom and I still loved her. She told me I would make the day very difficult for her and that, as my parent, she would hope I would want to make it easy for her. I told her she didn't have to come if she expected to be treated as the most important person there. She couldn't talk, and I continued by telling her that I would never pick her over my mom and that she needed to learn to accept that. She told me to get out of her face. My dad was cranky about the whole thing too. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Regardless of how your mum felt or acted towards your stepmum, she never forced that view on you or even told you about it. Your stepmum doing this is highly toxic and manipulative, especially given the young age you were when she started doing so. Tell her the only person causing drama is her, and if she can't put everything aside to be there to support you on your day, she shouldn't bother attending at all. Exactly this. It seems like the stepmom is the toxic one engaging in parental alienation. None of that should have been told to a child. At least the mom left the child out of adult matters. I wonder if it's possible that the trouble your mother caused was because your stepmother was overstepping too early, and your mother was just trying to make sure she didn't lose you. I'm just speculating. OP, this woman does not care 2 bits about you. She only wants to one-up your mother and hurt her by taking over what's left of her, her daughter. Your father also supports this expedition fueled by hate and manipulation. To conclude, they are not good people. Your mother is definitely a better one. Have a happy graduation with your mom and cut off your stepmom if possible. All the best. So in my neighborhood, the houses are built sort of like a sandwich. So there's my house, my driveway, a shared hedge and fence, my neighbor's driveway, and then his house. I hope that's clear. My neighbor has 2 kids, each of whom has their own car. So they have 4 cars and my family has 2. There's no street parking. Our driveways lead to detached garages. His kid has the bad habit of parking in my driveway when I'm not home. He can park between our houses and walk to his side entrance. I'm sort of done asking him not to do this, but I'm not calling law enforcement or towing him. I didn't want grief in the neighbourhood. Yesterday, he did it again. So I parked behind him and went for a bike ride. When I got back, I noticed the hedge was torn up. It was kind of hard to miss. I guess what happened is after he got home, everyone else left. I have no idea why he didn't call a cab or an Uber. What he did instead was drive over the hedge between our driveways. These aren't little raspberry brambles, these are 30-year-old hedges. Anyway, his dad is sitting there looking at the hedge. He asked me if I know what happened. I said, come over for a beer and we can check my surveillance. So now the kid is angry because he has to pay to replace the hedge and his car is all scratched up. I guess he'd been warned he would be fired if he was late for work again. So the kid thinks I'm the idiot for blocking him on purpose, which I guess I did, but the consequences were completely unintended. I was planning on moving the car to let them out when I got home. He could have called an Uber. Heck, he could have called in sick. Am I the idiot? I said, come over for a beer and we can check my surveillance. Not the idiot, and you deserve a medal for this line. The neighbourhood kid parked on your property, on top of it damaged something, and have the audacity to be angry to be held accountable for his actions? Well, welcome to adulthood. Yeah, I hope he handled this like a champ, but I guarantee your neighbour will not pay you enough for your 30-year-old hedges. You need a good lawyer. You said you don't want neighbourhood drama, but they brought it to you in the form of possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars in financial loss to restore your hedge.